This is a reacting mass type question where you're given the mass of one of the reactants. You're asked to calculate the mass that could be produced of one of the products. So in this question, if you look at the equation, we've been given the mass of potassium, hydrogen, carbonate, KHCO3. So what I tend to do in these types of questions is tick the thing that I've been given the mass of, and I put a question mark by the thing that the question wants us to answer. And it says calculate the maximum mass of K2CO3, which is this one. So let's put a question mark over that one. That just helps us to simplify what we want. So if I pop those underneath just to make it a little bit more clear, KHCO3, and we're going to make K2CO3. And I can essentially ignore the other products because they're not involved in the question. Right, what you need to remember is how to work out moles. So I'm going to pop this on the side just to remind you. So moles is equal to the mass over the MR, or the relative formula mass. And that's the equation you're going to use in all of this. Right. I also like to create a table just to sort of clarify what I want to do. So I'm going to pop the bits from that equation into a table under each of those things. So I'm going to put the mass, I'm going to put the moles, I'm going to put the MR, I'm also going to put the ratio. And that's the ratio of moles that react. So let's just pop in to the table what we know already from the question. So we've got the mass of this one is 2.5. We can work out the MR. So if I write it over here, KHCO3, using the mass numbers in the periodic table, we can work out the MR of this compound. So potassium is 39, hydrogen is 1, carbon is 12, and I've got oxygen, which is 16, but I've got 3 of them, so 16 times 3. Add those all together to calculate the MR, and that should come to 100. So let's pop that in the table. And we can do the same for K2CO3. K2CO3. So that's 39 for potassium, and there's 2 of them, so I times that by 2. Got 12 for carbon, and I've got 16 for oxygen, but it needs to be multiplied by the 3 that's there. I'm going to add all those together. That equals 138. Pop that on the table. Right, the ratio is using the balancing numbers in the equation. So that's 2, and that one's blank, which means it must be 1. I can put 2 and 1. And the ratio just means the ratio of moles that react. So when I have 2 moles of KHCO3, I would make 1 mole of K2CO3. So what we need to do is find out the missing moles. And we're going to do that using our equation over here, which is moles equals mass over MR. If I'm getting a little bit busy, but I'll put it up here. Right, so we're going to work out the moles of KHCO3, and I've got the mass as 2.5, and I've got the MR, which is 100. So if we do it over here, 2.5 divided by 100 equals 0.025. So let's pop that into our table. 0.025. Right, so I've got all the information for KHCO3, and then I need to just transfer across and work out that same information for K2CO3. If we have a look here, the ratio is really important. It's 2 to 1, and that's the ratio of moles. So now we know the moles of KHCO3 is 0.025, we can work out the moles of K2CO3. So if we do 0.025 moles, and because it's a 2-to-1 ratio, and we've got the one that's 2, and we want the one that's 1, we need to divide it by 2. So 0.025 divided by 2 equals 0.0125. And that's how many moles of K2CO3 that we're going to make. So 0.0125 moles of K2CO3. So now we've got the moles, and we've got the MR, moles here, and MR here, 138. We can use our original moles equation to calculate the missing mass. And we need to rearrange our equation from moles equals mass over MR to get mass on its own. So if I write that down here, it's mass equals moles times by MR. So it's moles, which is 0.0125, times my MR, which is 138, and that will equal 1.725, and that's my answer, 1.725. I'll pop it in here just to, and that's how you do a reacting mass question. Looks quite busy, but if you structure it in a table, it'll tell you which information you need to include. And I would always suggest that outside of the table you show your working like I've done here. Hopefully that's helpful.